granniopteryx, granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Okay, well, a woman is allowed to change her mind, isn't she? That goes with the territory. What happened was I started analysing Keir Starmer's speech. I started my video. You will in a little while see the beginning of that, my introduction. And I intended to go through the whole thing. But it's a very long speech, and to my surprise, there's far more there that needed discussion than I assumed there was. A lot of it was complete nonsense, of course, but that's why it was important to talk about it. So I stopped at his 18-minute point. And what's going to happen now is that you are going to see the first 18 minutes of Keir Starmer's speech, plus my introduction and then my analysis. If this gets a reasonable amount of views, I will do another 18 minutes and I'll go through that. But if people aren't interested, then, there's not much point in me going through it, because it's really quite soul-destroying listening to this, I have to admit. Okay, so that's what's happening. This is my introduction to my introduction, and then after that you're going to get 18 minutes of Keir Starmer, plus my analysis of what he said thus far. All right. Over to you, Granniopteryx. Hello. I was trying to avoid Keir Starmer's speech to the Labour Party conference, but I thought, it's not really fair of me to avoid that. I really should be making some sort of comment on it. So what I've decided to do is sit here and watch the whole thing. And I'm going to make comments. And I see now that the whole thing is, it's about an hour long, the speech, what with one thing and another. I listen to him, so you don't have to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make comments, and then I'm going to cut it down quite a lot. And I'll be giving you my first impressions. I honestly haven't seen any of it. I have heard people say he does little else but talk about Nigel Farage. Well, I'm going to keep those bits in. And if I remember, I have a text file open here, and I'm going to list times down when he says something that I want to keep. And I'm going to try and compress it down so you get the highlights as I see them. Now, obviously, I don't like Keir Starmer. I think he's an immoral person. I think his government is illegitimate. I mean, there isn't very much I can say about his entire set. So you're not going to get a neutral report here. You are going to get my assessment of his speech based on the fact that I hate the man and I loathe what he's doing to my country. Given that I'm going to be listening to a whole hour of this, and then I'll probably be spending 2 or maybe up to 2 hours just editing it, if you fancy contributing financially, that really would be very welcome. What else? And please like this video. That will repay me quite a bit as well. Share it and subscribe to my channel. Please make sure you are subscribed. YouTube is doing very odd things with my subscription numbers. Right, I think that's it. All right, so that's the business out of the way and the explanation. And let's get on with listening to Keir Starmer delivering his speech to the Labour Party conference. So why is he clapping? Right from the start, what is he clapping there? Oh, he's not clapping. He's boosting. He is what the French used to call, I think they were called claqueurs, weren't they? They were people who were paid to sit in the audience and you know, big up the audience reaction, which would they would be very enthusiastic, and this would give the rest of the audience the impetus to also be enthusiastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for responding so well to my claqueuring.
Thank you, conference. Thank you, Figan. Thank you, Pooja, by leading by example, so powerfully showed just on that video just now. And Margaret, thank you so much for that introduction. I know it wasn't easy, even after the unimaginable loss of losing James, after all those obstacles deliberately put in your way. With this Hillsborough law, you and the other families, some of them are with us this afternoon, and other campaigners.
What he is talking about here is the Hillsborough law, which is not a law that's taken effect now, but is proposed legislation to do with the Hillsborough disaster, which happened in 1989. And it was a football match which went wrong. The police mishandled the crowds, and what they ended up doing was forcing a lot of people in the football crowd into a small area where some people right at the front were crushed by the weight of the crowd against the fence, which was originally set up to stop football hooligans from throwing bottles and such at the pitch. And the police covered it up. So the Hillsborough law, it says, is a public office accountability bill. That was the original name. And it says that public officials and authorities would have a legal duty to be honest, transparent and assist in inquiries and investigations into, it says here, state-related deaths. I wonder how much they're going to apply this law to the victims of the grooming gangs who were ignored by the Labour councils in charge of the... And by the way, I'm using the word grooming gangs because of YouTube, not because I think that's the right word. We all know that the right word begins with the letter R, don't we? OK, so I don't know, he's making use of this legislation. It is a good idea, this legislation. The question is how much the government is going to apply it, because it looks very much as if the government applies laws, at least this government, applies laws selectively, and the judges that they employ, that they have influence over, also seem to take a selective view of the sort of punishments that should be applied in certain cases. So it's a good idea. I don't trust it in the hands of this government, but as I said, I don't trust this government to start with. All right.
Have served a degree of justice for James, for the 97, but also for thousands of people that you will never know and you will never meet, who will never now have to go through what you went through.
I don't know why people doubt that this guy is a Christian, because he sounds just like a vicar delivering a sermon right now. I think that's his model.
Thank you. Thank you. Margaret, I remember meeting you and some of the other families nearly 15 years ago now with Bishop James Jones. I was humbled to be able to campaign after such loss. As a father of a daughter aged 14 and a son aged 17 who goes to football with me, 1 year younger than James was, I honestly don't think I would have the courage to do what you have all done. I was also struck at that first meeting by meeting some family members who had never felt able to talk about what happened that day. Perhaps because they feared that people like them would never be heard. Conference, this party was founded to hear working class people like that, to look directly into the eyes of their suffering, even when the state turns its back.
Again, I think of the, I'll use the word now, rape gangs, and the way the government turned its back at the Conservatives as well. But the first line of defence were the councils, and they were, I think, almost exclusively Labour councils who were ignoring this issue.
And so the Hillsborough law is not just a promise delivered, it is also a recognition that whether it's Hillsborough, Grenfell, Windrush, Horizon, the grooming gangs, Infected Blood and so many more, the British state consistently refused to see injustice because of who the victims are. Because they're working.
No, it wasn't because of who the victims are. That did play a part. It was because of who the perpetrators are. And that has been very obviously said by various Labour grandees, including one who said these girls should shut up for the sake of diversity. And she said that was meant to be a joke. Maybe it was. But if it was a joke, it trivialised a horrible situation. So, no, that's not a joke. And he's talking about the Hillsborough law doing something about that. And he's not the Labour Party. What happened to the National Inquiry? I'm still waiting. I think we all are.
Class. They're black. They're women and girls. And so, Margaret, I know we can never undo the pain for you and all the other families. But we can show that in the Britain that we are building, the state will see, the state will listen, the state will be accountable to working people, because now injustice has no place to hide.
Injustice has no place to hide, he says. I refer the honourable gentleman back to all the rape gangs that his members of his party are hiding and still hiding, and that you are still not getting on with dealing with. So, it's very, the Hillsborough law is nice, and that, that push at the end, no place to hide. I wouldn't be surprised if his script contained asterisks there and underlines and that sort of thing. Just remember, and maybe with a couple of dots, full stops between each word to remind him to emphasise each word separately. It wouldn't surprise me at all, because I don't think he wrote this speech. He might have put some input into it, of course. These poor people here have really suffered. And really, the Hillsborough law shouldn't be necessary. Governments shouldn't have to have a law that compels them to look for disasters that the state and state operators have done. And I am enormously sad for these people who lost their family members in just terrible circumstances. There's no doubting that these people are wonderfully strong, and their campaign has been long and difficult and soul destroying, and they've kept on doing it. It's nothing to do with them. I believe, though, that they are being used by Starmer because he doesn't give a toss about the working classes, the working person, as he called them.
That's National Renewal Conference, government and working people working together to drag us out of decline, building a new Britain. Now, it's an urgent task. We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline. A country proud of its values, in control of its future, or one that succumbs against the grain of our history to the politics of grievance. It is a test, a fight for the soul of our country. Every bit.
Hang on, the politics of grievance. That would be Bridget Phillipson closing down private schools because she doesn't like posh people, would it? Because that's what it looks like to me. And the going for the farmers, that looks like the politics of grievance as well. He's accusing, obviously, other people of the politics of grievance. Well, something in the Bible. I mean, he's supposed to be a Christian, isn't he? He makes much of that. About criticising the mote in somebody else's eye when you've got an entire beam in your own eye.
As big as rebuilding Britain after the war. And we must all rise to this challenge.
Building Britain after the war. Yes, so now he's going back to the Labour government, which was after the war. It instituted the National Health Service and all sorts of other things. It didn't actually rebuild Britain. That was done by Harold Macmillan with his house building programme. The National Health Service is a terrific idea, which I have been told by many people who understand economy, many people who are economists who understand economics better than I do, far better than I do, have said that Britain couldn't afford the National Health Service, especially the way it was set up, and we can't afford it now. Now, I have benefited greatly from the National Health Service, but the way it's being run now, it's just got beyond control. And he's harking back to a time when it was basic. You got basic treatment, and that was fine. But now they're doing elective surgery, sex changes, which, on children, handing out mobility cards to people who say they're a bit depressed. There is a problem here. It's just got beyond control. And, by the way, national health hospitals are famous for cover-ups. We all know that, don't we? Maybe the Hillsborough law can apply to some of those.
Yet we need to be clear that our path, the path of renewal, it's long, it's difficult, it requires decisions that are not cost-free or easy, decisions that will not always be comfortable for our party. Yet at the end of this hard road, there will be a new country, a fairer country, a land of
No, I don't want a new country. I want my old country back. Now, Obviously, there are going to be some improvements. There always will be. Britain has been continuously improving itself over the centuries. The whole history of the country is one of a gradual levelling of social inequalities, a gradual improvement of public health and age expectations. We don't need to renew, we need to progress. Renew is what people like Pol Pot thought of, only he did it more extremely, of course. He closed down the whole of society and he was going to renew it and start again. How many millions of Cambodians died? Just a minute, I'm going to check that out. It resulted in the deaths of around up to 2 million people in the 4 years from 1975 to 1979. And that was almost 25% of Cambodia's population. So when I hear a politician talking about renewal, I get very nervous. We could actually go back to the French Revolution. That was renewal as well. They even tried to change the names of the days, and they had a 10-day week and a 10-month year, you know, that sort of thing. That went well, didn't it? All right.
Dignity and respect. Everyone seen, everyone valued. Wealth creation in every single community. Working people in control of their public services. The mindless bureaucracy that chokes enterprise removed so we can build and keep building. Clean British energy powering our homes. Technology harnessed to drive us forward.
Now, here we have a lot of, what would you call them? Pious emotions, you know, clean energy, going forward, technological development, you know, a chicken in every pot. Yeah? That's not a speech, that's not a plan. That's a prayer. Well, I told you he's acting like a vicar, didn't I? Oh, look, there's Ed Miliband.
Flags, flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism.
Oh, oppose racism. Oh, sorry. Oppose racism. Did you see that? He suddenly sprang to life there. He's droning and droning, you know, all the nice things, candy floss and rainbows and oppose racism. There must have been a line under that as well, possibly in boldface. That depends on how you define racism. All those Asian gangs going round talking about wanting Jewish blood. Is that racism? Are you opposing that? I don't see any evidence of it.
Conference.
Oh, and of course, notice they've all been given these little St. George's flags and 1 or 2 Union flags as well. But it's interesting why they're flying St. George's flags, which are specifically English, as opposed to Union flags, which are the whole, well, all the islands of the British Isles.
Thank you, Conference. The basic, ordinary hope of a better future for our children restored for millions. And through that, a Britain that has rediscovered the belief, the togetherness, the pride to take control of its future. That's what we're building.
Right, so take control of its future, like giving away the Chagos Islands, recognising terrorist regimes as states. Now, actually, that's a fine example of this country being driven by tides and storms that it cannot withstand. That Palestine state business is nothing more than Starmer responding to pressures that he has no strength to deal with, and taking us back into the EU, which he is desperately trying to do. That's not taking control of our future. That's giving it away. That's appeasement and weakness. But the fine words.
Conference, that's national renewal, a Britain built for all.
Yeah, Rachel Reeves doesn't look awfully happy, and I'm not sure about Ed Miliband either. OK, a Britain built for all. At least she's not crying this time.
But there is another path. We can call it the path of decline. But in truth, it leads to ruin, to chaos, to Britain being poorer in every sense. And it's a tempting path, because it asks nothing of people, makes no demands, suggests no difficulties. All you need to do is listen to politicians who tell you there's a quick fix, a miracle cure, tax cuts that magically pay for themselves, a wealth tax that somehow solves every problem. The Brexit lies on the side of that bus. Click here for your new country.
That's definitely not Starmer's words. You may notice that the tone of his voice changed then, and he was more fluent. And there's less of the sing-song. The sing-song is his voice. This was somebody else's voice. Yeah, a professional writer's voice, and I know a professional writer's words when I hear it.
We can all see these snake oil merchants on the right, on the left, but be in no doubt conference, none of them have any interest in national renewal, because decline is good for their business. I mean, think about it. When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain. Doesn't believe.
He says he doesn't like Britain. This is the party that had Emily Thornberry, who made fun of somebody who had when she was out canvassing in some northern town, talked about White Van Man and the England flags he had hanging out of his window in a rather somewhat sarcastic way. And she is still a grandee of his party. He can't talk about people who don't like Britain.
In Britain, wants you to doubt it just as much as he does. So he resorts to grievance. They all do. They want to turn this country, this proud, self-reliant country.
Self-reliant? We're in the pockets of the Qataris. Self-reliant. We bow our laws to the EU even now. Self-reliant? He pimps our king out to the American president. In front of cameras. In the Oval Office.
Into a competition of victims. Saying to you, to working people, don't trust in each other. You can't fix this. This is not a great country. But it is conference. It is a great country. It will always be a great country. A decent, pragmatic, tolerant, reasonable country that throughout history has stood its ground, stuck by its values, and built its future without fuss. That's the Britain I'm fighting for, conference, a nation of resolve.
And that's the Britain that the Labour Party appears to be trying to destroy with taxing, because Britain has always been, as Napoleon said, a nation of shopkeepers. But Napoleon thought that was bad. What Napoleon didn't realise was that these small businesses to which he refers, They were what made people fight for their country here. They wanted to fight for their own little patch. It's part of, for instance, in Britain, most of the country, most of the housing in the country that's been successful has been little, I'm talking about the main amount, the main number of people, even the working people he's talking about, living in small houses with small gardens, but they do have gardens. When my grandfather, who was a working class man, he had a little semi-detached house in a pretty low area of Leeds, and there was a garden at the back. He used to grow vegetables there. My mother told me of helping him dig over the garden. And that is the British way. These people want to build flats. You don't have a stake in society when you're living in a flat. I know lots of people do, and if you live in London, it's more difficult to have a garden. But the basic, if you look at, go on Google Maps and look at British streets in suburban towns, they've all got these little houses with little gardens, which are the patches of these people. I want to tell you where I live now. We have a little garden. But I'm very proud of that garden. I'm not much of a gardener, but I'm very proud of the apple trees we're managing to grow at the back. That is the whole point of Britain, the small business. And this government is doing, and that sort of, there's a little garden, then of course it gets bigger and bigger. The allotment system we have here, I don't know any other country that has it, there might be. And that was people who had very small gardens but wanted to grow vegetables. There was land allocated to them. They're called allotments, and they were administered by a local group that got together, and everyone would have a strip and they'd be growing stuff on their allotment, for which they'd pay, a peppercorn rent of some sort. But they'd have to keep the allotment in good order, or it would be taken away and assigned to somebody else who would garden it. And the councils, especially the Labour councils, are building over these allotments one after the other. Now, that starts with the small person, the working person that he's talking about. And it goes up to the small holdings and the crofters and the small farms. And he is doing his best to destroy all of that. Well, his government is. Rachel Reeves and her taxes. And even the private schools, many of them are small concerns, small businesses. They've all been taxed out of existence now. This is what is destroying Britain, the proud Britain that he's talking about. He is destroying it because he is destroying the small man or woman, the small business, which is the basic driver of British society. Because when you have your small business, you have a stake in this society. Otherwise, well, who cares?
A land of respect, a Britain built for all.
Yeah, well, like the solar panels they're building for all, and the huge suburban sprawl they're building for all, and the blocks of flats they're building for all, yeah? There's so many people who are unable to find homes, and the government is housing all sorts of illegal migrants in hotels at huge expense, money that can be used to build houses for all.
In conference, I welcome the new US initiative to bring peace to the Middle East. I strongly support efforts to end the fighting, release every hostage, and urgently scale up aid into Gaza.
Well, at least he got the word right and said hostage instead of sausage this time.
All sides must now come together to bring this initiative into reality, because we must restart the hope of a two-state solution, a safe and secure...
There is no two-state solution. That is off the board for the foreseeable future. I don't say it will never happen. I'm sure the Israelis will... Just a minute, the dog is... I'm just going to take the dog out. He's telling me he wants to go out. Yeah, he was quite patient. He was sitting there with his teddy, but I think he got bored. Another Reform voter, I think. OK, let's... So he's talking about the two-state solution now. I mean, would you allow... Let's say Wales went rogue and was filled with terrorists who periodically came out and started raping and pillaging in Shrewsbury and places like that. Hang on, is Shrewsbury in England or in Wales? I can't remember anymore. Oh, yeah, it's Western England. Right, I was right. If they came and they devastated Shrewsbury, yeah? Would he be entirely happy about saying, all right, Wales, you can have your own state there? There was a time when Welsh nationalists were burning down holiday homes. That didn't impel the government to give them their own state, did it? No, they won't do it for that.
Israel, alongside the long-promised Palestinian state, a state that this country now recognises.
Oh, yes, he recognises the Palestinian state, which was offered to the Arabs in I don't know, I can't remember how many, but if you look, they were offered it in something like 1948 and 1967 and then 1969 and then 1973, I think, and then, de facto in 2005 they were handed Gaza, weren't they, as their own state, and yeah, they refused it every time because they're being run by a death cult. And until they've got that out of their brain, they can't run a country, because their philosophy is one of negativity, not positivity. They don't want to build a state, they want to destroy Israel. That's their only raison d'etre. Oh, but just look how everybody is cheering there and waving their St. George's flags. What? What's that got to do with Palestine? Oh, no, it's just they're clapping so hard. Yeah, the flags are waving anyway. Crikey, that's the biggest applause he's got yet. Just astonishing. They're more. He's talking about this great country and how we're going to rebuild it, and the biggest cheer he got was for talking about Palestine. Do you think that that this government is one that's running its own destiny? Where did this Palestine thing come from? It didn't come from England or Britain. It came from elsewhere, and that's what these people are cheering.
Conference. Thank you, conference. Thank you.
Yeah, quiet. Calm down. It's getting embarrassing.
Conference, I will never give up on diplomacy. And I will never doubt British values.
You'll never give up on diplomacy. Where was your diplomacy after the Southport catastrophe? That wasn't diplomatic, was it? And everything you've done since then is telling people off instead of bringing them together. There's absolutely not even an iota of diplomacy in this man's nature.
Rules that protect those in need. Respect for difference under the same flag.
Oh yeah. And most of these Labour people respect difference, except if it happens to be like Jewish or Sikh or Hindu. The difference they respect is the Muslim difference. And that's about as far as it goes.
The freedom to live and let live. I will never doubt that these values make us strong in a world that preys on weakness.
And he is one of the weak that the world is preying on right now. It's true. The world, the ocean of our world is full of sharks. And he's just chucking tiddlers at the shark in the hope that he'll be eaten last.
How could I? The progress, the prosperity, the peace I've seen throughout my life, the journey I've been on, from a working class background to this.
Like that has never happened before. Benjamin Disraeli came from a Jewish family to become one of the probably the best prime minister of the 19th century. And Pitt was better. And how many? Just a minute. What about Harold Wilson? I mean, he's not unusual. He makes it sound like he didn't come from a working class background. It was extremely middle class, but he likes to pretend that he came from a working class background. There were many people who have reached the top of this government from far less advantaged backgrounds. His whole government is based on a lie, though. Rachel Reeves was an economist. The business secretary, whatever he's called, I keep forgetting his name, was a solicitor. No, they weren't. And he doesn't mind. And his father, of course, very working class. I'm not going to say what he was because I'm quite sure he's going to mention that pretty soon.
Owe everything to this country and its values. But working people, they're losing faith. They're ground down. Politics has made them question Britain.
Yeah, your politics have made them question Britain. I mean, the Conservatives were no good either. I'm not saying that was a golden age. After Margaret Thatcher, everything just sort of fell apart. They were coasting along, whatever he was called after Margaret Thatcher. He coasted along on what she'd built. And then David Cameron just ruined the rest.
And can you blame them? They've been nothing but patient. They lived through austerity, Brexit, COVID.
But hang on a minute. So what he's done, now this is really important. So austerity he regards as a disaster, and COVID was demonstrably a disaster. Whatever you feel about the disease itself, the response was dreadful. And Brexit, he has slipped that in as an example of one of three awful disasters that hit this country. That's really important there. And he's just trying to slip it past us like some sort of a snake oil salesman. Yeah?
Played by the rules, kept their side of the bargain. But time and again, politics ducked the challenge of renewal. Their high street.
He's talking about the challenge of renewal again.
Their pubs, their youth clubs, the places that shape a life, that create a common memory, struggling against the tide of decline. That is why we must never, never find ourselves defending a status quo that manifestly failed working people. That's what I say to people who think it would be nice if we could just go back to politics before Brexit or the crash. And this does go back that far, conference. The global financial crisis is when we were exposed, when a new Britain should have been born.
He's talking about renewal and a new Britain again. And this is, he's also brought in Brexit again as a disaster, as part of a disaster that's happened to this country. And he's talking about renewal. And it doesn't mean anything.
Complacent. That's the only way to describe it. Complacent. We place too much faith in globalisation.
Ah, is that so? So the fact that you prefer Davos, for instance, to Parliament, that sort of thing, that's not globalisation, is it? What is it then?
The establishment across so many institutions, in hock to its lazy assumptions.
I mean, they're selling half of the country to BlackRock. Is that not globalisation?
That immigration is all we need to give us the workers. Infrastructure will always be there because we built it decades ago.
Oh, he's suddenly talking about immigration now, is he? Yeah, well, again, words. But in the past year, absolutely no action. In fact, positive action in the wrong direction.
The world always on hand to give us the goods. It doesn't matter if our industry leaves. It doesn't matter if we don't train our young people.
Yeah, well, you see, your industry leaves because you're overtaxing them. You know that. I know that. Everyone knows that. You're being warned by just about everyone. But, you know, the words here have no connection to reality.
Doesn't matter if wealth creation is hoarded by just a few communities. Well, conference, look at our world now. Because in our age of insecurity, we can see now that it does matter. We do need to put our security first. We do need to unlock the potential of every community. We do.
Oh God! Unlock the potential of every community. That's that's something they're always talking about. Jeremy Corbyn, when he was running, was talking about lifting up the working man, and only they could do it. No, what you do is you leave people to do their own thing. They will lift themselves up by their own bootstraps if necessary. But it's a lot of pious nonsense. It really is.
We need a more muscular state, freed from the red tape that stops us building.
Free from the red tape that stops us building. What does that mean? So I thought he was going to be talking about bureaucracy. No, that stops us building. That means the green belt around our towns, the preservation of the countryside, that's going to be done away with. And that's why they're killing the small farms, isn't it? Because it's the small farms that stand in their way. When they tax inheritance tax on a small farm, it means that the surviving family is going to have to sell part of the farm or all of it to make their to pay their taxes. And that is going to be snapped up by globalist companies who will build estates and blocks of flats on it to house all the extra people that this country is taking in from all over the world. That's what's going on. That is what's happening. I think I'm going to stop here because this is serious.
Growing our economy from the grassroots, renewing every town and city on these islands.
Renewing, again, the word renew, and there it is, renew there.
It comes back to growth. So much of it comes back to economic growth.
You're not going to get economic growth with the sort of taxation system you're instituting. So here's an article from Reuters again. Fearing more taxes, UK business issues warning to government. And they've shown the city, but there's many smaller businesses that are closing down. I see it happening all the time now. Having been badly burned by the British government's major tax-raising budget last year, business leaders told ministers at the ruling Labour Party's annual conference that they could no longer afford to foot the bill for fixing the country's budgetary black hole. Finance Minister Rachel Reeves said that tax rises were needed to plug a fiscal hole left by the last government, but nearly a year on, ministers are again expected to raise tens of millions of pounds in their next budget on November the 26th. This has made companies wary. The problem is this government is not telling people what they're going to do, so businesses don't know how to plan for the future. Yeah, the Confederation of British Industry also expressed concern that a new workers' rights bill might act as a barrier to hiring. So, businesses which might be able to expand will not be able to expand simply because of they're afraid to take on new workers who will be able to hold them over a barrel for all sorts of rights. Yeah, we urge the government to avoid further temptation to pile more taxes onto small businesses, he said, adding that small businesses bore the brunt of tax rises. And they do that because what happens is when there are extra taxes that the business has to comply with, when it's a huge business, they have a team of lawyers of various sorts and accountants. They can just absorb this. But small businesses, you've just got a husband and wife sitting over the kitchen table with stacks of government tax forms they have to fill in. And when they're doing that, they're not out doing business. And that's what the government is doing to them. The uncertainty is there, the cloud is there. We need to encourage businesses to grow rather than not to invest. Look, I'll tell you, this is a change of plan. I've got through 18 minutes of Keir Starmer's speech, and I think I've spoken enough about this particular section. I shall try to do more if it doesn't break my heart too much. But I'm going to stop here because I think that's just about all you want to take now anyway. And I'll edit this up and I'll put it out. And then maybe I'll do the rest in bits like this, because this has turned out to be far more complicated than I thought it was going to be. Okay, till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.